Hey, Scott Fresener here with the T-shirt report with my good friend Richard Greaves. Richard's in Detroit again. You're not really in Detroit. What's your what suburb are you in?
It's Wyandotte, 20 minutes south of Detroit.
Ah, there we go. There we go.
Where I will be in about 30 minutes.
All right. And I'm in beautiful Bowling Green, Kentucky. I came into Bowling Green to do one of my Printer's boot camps. I've been in Bowling Green all week. I fly out today, and I love Bowling Green, although it's gloomy again today and rainy. And I'm going to fly back to Phoenix, where it's going to be 95 on Saturday. So anyway, so in this show, this is episode number 7. That's pretty good. We're still doing this thing 7 episodes later. What are we going to talk about this time?
This week on T-Shirt Report, Etsy turns 10, and they're thinking about an IPO. Talking about IPOs will also be Kornit. We've got quite a few trade shows we want you to think about. It's spring. Business is picking up, and I talk about some of the best writing I ever did in Printwear magazine.
And we're going to talk a little bit about support logs and people that call and say, "Hey, I can't hold a 50% dot." No, usually they can't hold a 20% dot. A 10 is a dream, and a 5 they would never hold. So we're going to give a few tips on that. So hope you enjoy the show. Hey, we have Easter coming up, and for our Jewish friends, you told me a funny story. I just didn't know that Coca-Cola has like its own special bottle that's kosher.
Well, kosher for Passover, where Jews don't want to eat grains, especially. So you can't have things like corn syrup, corn being the grain. And so kosher means real sugar. So when you're at the grocery store for the kosher for Passover, or ask, are you going to have kosher for Passover Coke, look for the yellow, at least last year there were yellow caps, and it says U-O-P on it, means parv, and it's going to be a real sugar Coke. Now, over your shoulder, do you see what I've got there?
Yeah, see, I can't talk to you anymore because you told me you're a Pepsi guy. I'm a Coke guy.
I'm a Pepsi guy.
Yeah.
So, but I'm telling you, I go to the stores and I prowl for the kosher for Passover Coke because it tastes like real Coke the way it used to. If you can still get the little mini bottles, the 7-ounce bottles, there I have to go to Discount Drinks to get those. So that's what I will be getting. I'll stock up, get 4 or 5 6-packs of the little mini bottles. And
can I get the Passover version? But can I get it, like in the middle of summer and
Now, if you ask now, it starts around the end of the month.
Yeah. So
I'm telling people a little bit ahead of time because, again, next Sunday, it will be Easter.
Yeah. And
the start of both the holidays for most religions. But this is the important religious reason that I need to be at the grocery store looking for yellow caps on Coca-Cola.
You can get the older tasting Pepsi. Hey, what's the shirt? Dramatic. I'm looking what's behind you.
The shirt is a shirt I printed at Coastal Printworks in North Hollywood, California, and they had a great client, Mathematica, who they're the same people that created the mathematical software. It's all from Wolfram, the people that actually have that very high-level search engine. I haven't gone to Wolfram in a long time to search for something, but if you needed something that was really mathematical, these are the people, and they always had super full color process boxes. Remember when software came in boxes?
Yeah.
So that's what we printed.
Now it's a fake box on the website because the box doesn't exist. They got to show the package, but then it's a download only. So anyway.
When I was looking for the new version of Premiere Essentials, I went to the Adobe website the other day, and they're still selling it. Of course, you can't get the CC stuff, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show.
All righty. Hey, you and I were going to talk about Etsy. What does Etsy stand for? I don't follow it.
I don't know what Etsy stands for.
Greaves. I'm sorry. I thought you would know. There must be an acronym for something. E.T. What is it? E.T.
No, I think they picked something that was so unique. It took me a long time to actually figure out how to actually spell it. An interesting story. When I lived in Brooklyn, when I worked for Ulano, the building I lived in was right next door to the Etsy building. and they had several floors in a building right next to mine. And I remember that I was on the roof of my building where we had a little lounge for the people that lived there, and I was looking down, and they were doing stuff on their roof. They were making films, and I remember that when I lived there, I stopped in one day saying, "Hello, I saw your screen making video, your training video, and I work at Yolano just down the street." So, I went in to try and make friends, and they sort of went, "Huh?"
Really?
I could tell that they'd never heard of Richard Greaves. So,
you think,
like
were you the old guy? I mean, were they just younger guys that just didn't follow the industry?
No, I think following the tradition of Etsy, of handmade, they didn't understand. They didn't really follow the commercial aspects of screen making. They're exposing it on the roof. The video that they did way back in 10 years ago. That's how I actually know that it's 10 years because they were absolutely brand new when I lived right next to them. I believe they have moved away from downtown Brooklyn where I used to live, and now they're in some better place.
Right.
But remember, they're not doing the handwork there. They're, of course, they've got the big mall in the sky, up in the cloud. So what brings this to mind is that Etsy is 10 years old, and they're going to go for an IPO. So it's the talk of the town. But I've been paying attention a little bit more to Etsy because they changed their rules, and it's really redefining the definition of what hand is. Because they said it wasn't last year, it was a couple of years ago in the fall, they said that you could actually sell things that had been made by other people. Now, I don't know how this affects the knitters or the jewelry makers or whatever, but this was kind of news to me because when you print on a T-shirt, which is really what I'm interested in more than anything else, and you have to use a screen, the idea that you're not hand making the screen, it's all the tools you make things with. And I think that was also always an important part of understanding state tax law or sales laws, because you never sold anybody a screen. It's what you use to something else. And we're printing on T-shirts, and I don't know anybody that's selling T-shirts on Etsy that made their own T-shirts. So I never understood it, but it was a big part of the internal idea of craft that now people can hire extra people. They can put their marketing outside. They can hire staff. They can outsource shipping and sell items that are produced with, and here's the key part, manufacturing partners. I haven't done too much with Etsy, but that would be the news that I picked up and I am aware of.
But quite a change in that whole thinking. I suppose it started off as an artsy, craftsy, and now they have to, change their whole direction and go more commercial. That's interesting.
I've forgotten the numbers already, but the millions of sellers that they've got. So imagine not the flea market, but a little co-op kind of a place where you got hundreds of little kiosks. That's what Etsy is, and I don't know if it's a terrific place to sell shirts, but it's a good place for people to actually create a website where you can sell.
I don't follow it, and I should. I probably should. Maybe I just busy with other stuff, but I don't.
I think I've been too commercial in my day, so
must be it. What's the latest news on the water? You have a water-based thing.
My old friends at Stanley, who I've mentioned in several tweets in the past, and Michael Best is writing a blog at Stanley Screen Supplies. They're up in Canada, and he's got some interesting water-based things that he's posted in the last couple of days. I'll post the Inside Screen Printing blog address in the show notes. So just something to go read, something to follow.
Is it new technology or just something he's exposing, or just curious?
My friend Stuart Brent, who used to live in the East Coast and now he's lived in 3 different places in the last 3 or 4 years, he used to have a water-based blog, and I don't know if Stuart's still doing that anymore. I met him when he came to the Atlantic City Imprinted Sportswear Show, and we sat out in the lobby for maybe 2 or 3 hours and talked about the business. But he become a nice friend. He moved down to South Carolina. He used to do a blog about water-based and discharge printing, and that was my go-to site. I send everybody there. So I don't think that Michael Best is going to blog on water-based at all times, but he's said some very intuitive things, and it's a blog that I follow on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend people go read it.
You know, I know we have a lot to cover today, but I go to blogs sometimes and you see they haven't posted for a year. I think sometimes people get really excited. Even I was going to do a blog, and then you realize you have to do it, like our show, every day or every week. And you go to the blog and you go, is this guy still alive? Hello? And, you know, because it's the last post was 2 years ago, you know, and you figure, life moved on, you know, the blog's still there. So
When I was still consulting, and I traveled all over the world, my website, richardgreaves.com, was a go-to place. And when I went there, because I've got that I'm going to post, we'll get to that later on, my printware books, but when I went there, I looked at the calendar, and I haven't updated the calendar since 2006. So
you're one of
I
those
am
guys.
guilty.
All right. I like going to the website and it says, here's the recent trade shows we're going to be at, and it lists SGIA for last year, and you know, so. Hey,
don't do as I do. Do as I tell you to do.
Hey, speaking of IPOs, I was blown away the other day. I got an IPO. I noticed from some financial. I have a Google, what do they call it, a Snap, where I have send me anything about ETG or if my name is mentioned somewhere or Photoshop. But I got a thing that
Google News.
Yeah, Kornit Digital is going to have an IPO on April 2nd, just a few days from now. They're trying to raise 7 million shares, trying to sell at $13 to $15 per share. They're trying to raise about $300 or $400 million. Hey, more power to them. I was blown away by the number that they did 66 million last year in sales with a net income of 3 million. Now that's probably in the grand scheme of manufacturing. Maybe that's okay, but 3 million on 66 million, you know, they're probably still investing. I tell you what, some of those big guys, we talked about them last episode, that have 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 avalanches. But what's weird is I did a little research, I did a little Google of Kornit Avalanche, and I found one of the big guys who still runs ads on Facebook called mylocker.com has 10 avalanches for sale.
Ooh.
And it's on their website. You go to MyLocker, and there it is. Hey, order shirts, order bags, all custom done. But if you follow the links, because the link I found for sale products was on their website, I'm thinking, why would you have on your website that you're selling 10 of your machines? But anyways, so but DTG, but it was just interesting. Kornit Digital, more power to them. Those guys have paid their dues, and they have 251 employees. Wow, I thought I had a lot of employees at 90. That's a lot. Anyway, so we'll see what happens next time. Maybe we'll be able to report. Maybe they came in at $8 a share rather than $13 to $15 a share.
Well, we have to buy our stock so that we get the news.
Damn, you're right.
I got 10 shares of Kornit. Get in on the ground floor. Don't you wish we'd bought Apple and Microsoft early on?
You know, I never had much stock, but I owned some Apple years ago, and it was like $50, and I think it's whatever $800 an hour it was. I'm not sure what it ended up. So
I told you not to sell.
I know.
Invest for the long term.
Hey, you were telling me that SGIA is having a screen making seminars. I know that they really promote the Charlie Hobley. What's it called? Like a 5-day.
I think it's a basic or basic to advanced.
I think so. Yeah. But I see
5 days.
I see that our buddies Art and Dave Dennings are doing a thing at SGIA.
They're doing the semi-annual. Sometimes they have done it twice in the past, and it's a 2-day thing. So they've got 2 friendly competitors, Dave Dennings from Kiwo, Yolano, and Art Doby, who's now working at Chromeline. I mentioned that in our last show. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing the 5-day screen making seminar. So it's 5 full days. You've got to go there and be there for 5 days. But you're going to be working with 2 of the best screen makers I've ever met. So if you're really interested in really intensively learning everything you can imagine about screen making, go to SGIA. It's $600 for members. If you're not a member, they charge an extra $200. So what is that? That's like $125 a day.
They do a deal. It's May 11th to the 15th. So that should be good. They've been doing screen making seminars, not necessarily with these guys, but they've been doing screen making seminars for the last 20 or 30 years. But they're well known for that.
I did it
Yeah.
I did it in the past. I did full color process seminars 20 years ago. I remember Mike Buchanan was actually in one of my seminars. I think it's because, of course, he worked at SGIA at the time, so he was the training guy.
So I hear a rumor that you're traveling to beautiful Indiana.
I'll be giving a seminar in Decatur, Indiana. Why, I might ask? Because that's where Mind's Eye Graphics, that's where Greg Kitson's shop is. And Greg Kitson has sponsored quite a few open houses and seminars. He did a Saudi seminar last year, screen making. And I remember I said, "Hey, I'd like to come down," and they sort of went, "Oh, I don't know, Richard. I don't think we want you there."
Yeah.
So later on,
now you're welcome, huh? Yeah, because you're the presenter.
No, I'm always welcome. In fact, when I saw Greg and Brian, a bunch of the guys from SGI, and sort of, not SGI, but Sati, when I saw them at the Nashville show, I said, "So guys, I wasn't welcome." They heard about that. "Oh no, you would have been welcome. It would have been fine if you'd been there." Yeah. That's fine. They say that after the seminar, but no, it's always been very good. So Greg and I have been talking about this for years. Let's do something together. So we're finally going to do it. He announced it on the shirt board, and before I was able to actually tell them what it's about, he named it. He wants to call it Greaves on Garments, because that was my original column that I started in 1986 in Screen Printing Magazine. I had a column for 11 years called Greaves on Garments, and I added to that Greaves on Garments Insights, with the stress on insights, because in 2 days, because nobody wanted to come to Decatur, Indiana for 1 day, they wanted 2 days. Okay, so it isn't very specific. I'm going to cover everything that I can imagine is a great lesson, a great teaching point, the experience you can get from my 36 years of being in the screen printing business. So that's from womb to tomb. So with that blurb and that blurb only, they booked 20 seats of the 30 already.
I'm impressed. You know that. When you told me about it, I was going to tell you, "Well, I'll help you promote it." And you said, "Well, no, they sold 20 seats like that, like the tickets were high." There probably people going to be scalping the tickets outside of Greg's place.
Well, I owe a lot to Pierre Yamnishi, who runs the shirt board, and the guys. I had testimonials from friends like Winnie Strickland, who I haven't seen in 20 years. He sells used equipment down in Florida, and the time I with Winnie was just a great time in my life as we toured Europe looking for trouble. And Tony Pepitone, who I met at several different places and has been a great inspiration to me as how he's really gone on and really become a master printer. I'm just blown away. How am I going to fill the 12 hours that I'm going to have to fill? I'm going to fill it with plenty of stories. So if you don't like stories of the olden days and the lessons learned, you kids,
yeah, you can do it. May 1st or the 2nd, though. Mind's Eye.
May the 1st and 2nd.
Mind'sEyeG.com. Yeah.
I think the important thing is there's also going to be demonstrations. All those things that I talk about are actually going to do the screen coding experiments like you're supposed to. So I'm going to do almost all of the invisible experiments, things that are invisible, things you can't see, and why you need to measure. That's absolutely going to be the theme, and it'll be broken up into 55-minute segments, just like school, because I'm going to need to rest after every hour. So there'll be a little break after every hour. And
I'm sorry, I love you. That's funny. I got to go take a break. I got to get my napkins. So I can see all of us. Someday we'll all be in the screen printer's home. We'll all be in our wheelchairs and walkers. Yeah.
Remember wooden screens?
Yeah.
I printed that full color process job on wooden screens.
Yeah, that's so fun. I'm glad. I'm glad for you. I'm pleased, and that's a good deal. To sell out that quick, or not sell out, you're almost sold out. So anyway,
it's $175 for 2 days. So
the price is
less. It's less expensive. It's less expensive than going to the SGIA.
Yeah.
And seeing my good friends Art Doby and Dave Dennings, but we'll see now.
That's affordable.
We anticipate that we're probably going to do another one in October. That's not a reason not to come to this one. But the only people that backed out were people that couldn't go because it is busy season now. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the shirt industry has come back up.
Definitely busy. Because we got the DAX show coming up in. I'm not sure I've ever been to the Tinley Park Convention Center. Where's that at? I mean, I guess I'm Tinley Park probably, but
it's on the west side, well, southwest side. So it's not so easy to get to the delis that I like to in downtown Chicago. It's, kind of out there, but it's at the State Route 43 and it's on I-80. So it's easy to get to, and the hotels are near that area in the Tinley Park Convention Center. Now, it's supposed to be the biggest DAC show ever.
Oh, and I guess as you're talking, it's at a convention center. I hadn't quite caught that. Usually it's at a ballroom at a hotel. So that's
right.
Good for Scott. He's been flogging that for years. So I'm very pleased. ISS had the Chicago show. And so he's picking up the slack with ISS. They dropped out of Chicago years ago. And so that's a nice little slot, I think. I'm glad.
I was talking to Paul Schmidt. I know Workhorse is going to be there. They're going to have a piece of equipment on the floor. So the idea that, I can't imagine M&R won't be there, but I don't know. The only guy I know that will be there will be Workhorse.
That's fantastic. That's good. We need to promote Scott. He's a good guy. Every year SGIA sends out their call for presentations, and you and I fill out our forms and say we'd like to talk about this, and this, and this. Last year, I think we both got bumped. But this year, you got approved for one year. I haven't heard from them, so I'm sure I'm out. But
I got approved. People that are regulars to this netcast will remember that I talked about the Anthony Bourdain seminar that I went to, or the panel discussion I went to at the 92nd Street Y, and that was inspired by this book, How I Learned to Cook, edited by Kimberly Witherspoon and Peter Meehan, M-E-E-H-A-N. I was just blown away by that particular seminar, and I've been thinking about it since then, which is like 2006 or 2007. I've been pitching this for the last 3 years to the SGIA, and they don't seem to have picked it up. This year they did. So now I have to assemble 2 or 3 different printers that I can interview, and I'm going to mimic exactly what I saw at the 92nd Street Y. So I know I'm going to try and ask the good printers that I've done. Number 1 on my list is going to be Mark Coudray. I've got my own stories that I can tell, but I'm going to be a moderator, and so I'm going to look to pluck some people that came from unusual locations. I hope Mark Gervais will be in the country for that. If he is, I'm going to try and get Mark Gervais so he can talk about his adventures in China. And it's going to be a big interview. I know that I will be videotaping that. I'm excited about that.
You get 90 minutes to do your shtick, probably. Yeah.
And your boot camp, you're packed up. You're in your Bowling Green house. And so you had your boot camp this weekend. How did that go?
Good, other than loading the U-Haul and unloading it. I feel like I'm a freaking...
Don't you have children? Don't you have children for that?
No, you go on Facebook and post to all your friends, and they all say, we'll come help you, and then one shows up, And so I feel like I'm in a band. We always joke, we got to get this thing loaded up. We got to be in Tulsa by midnight for tomorrow's gig, And so I've said earlier, I like Vastec's equipment, but that stuff is heavy. We have to take his press apart to move it. I mean, it's probably 800 pounds fully assembled. So Mike and I pushing it up the ramp. That's the glamorous side of doing this industry. You know that from working trade shows. That's the glamorous side, setting up the booth and tearing it down. So, we had 22 people, and we had we're gonna do 3 more this year in Bowling Green. We're actually looking at maybe a permanent location because we're tired of schlepping the gear. We had a gal from Nigeria. We have quite a few from Texas. I don't know why Texas. I'm trying to figure out. Even my June class, I've got some sign-ups already from Texas. I need to just go to do something in Texas because it seemed odd. But yeah, we did the boot camp, and 3 days of master separators and 3 days with Michael about how to get in this business. So we had entrepreneurs mixed with guys that had 16 color autos. I mean, in different rooms, So it's kind of a nice mix of stuff.
Now, I love it when you go into the hotel ballrooms that don't really know what we're going to do. And when I was doing the seminars with Union and Midwest Sign and Screen Supply, I remember that we're laying the plastic out on the carpet, and the hotel manager just happened to stop by and says, "What are you going to do?" I just, well, after we shoot the people, we don't want to leave a mess on your carpet.
Hey, this is Al Pacino, right?
Oh. This is in Wichita,
yeah.
And he did not like. I just said it because I was in a good mood. Oh, boy, did I get into trouble there.
That's so funny.
Got to be careful. Like bank managers, you can't make jokes with hotel managers.
No. Okay, quick story. We said we would keep our stories short, but a quick story is we had booked the Music City Center a year ago. I think I told this before, a year and a half ago, to do what, before it ever opened in Nashville, to do our classes. We had the dates booked. We were really happy. Music City Center, this is going to be really cool. It's their brand new convention center where ISS is. And then we had the contract in hand. The gal calls us, what are you going to be doing in these rooms? Screen printing. You can't do it. What do you mean we can't do it? Brand new carpeting. You can't do it. I'll give you references. I do it at ISS Show. They've done it around the world. You can't do it. Sorry. They canceled my contract. ISS calls me and says, hey, we're doing Nashville. I says, you better be careful of that place because you can't do your training and you and I went there last year. And what did we find? Their hands-on training for Charlie was on the show floor because the convention center wouldn't let ISS print in the rooms. Now at the Holiday Inn where we're at, total remodel. The carpeting is brand new. Yeah. They just finished carpeting this room a week ago. So we're going, oh, crap. And so we have a washout sink. We've got plastic, and the hose springs a leak. We got water everywhere, but it's on the plastic. So, anyway, so we're out of there.
So Nashville, let's finish up with Nashville.
Sure. Yeah.
So somebody told me in Atlantic City that the whole city is booked up because of some other convention. So I don't know if I'm going to go if the rooms are all $400. Last year I stayed out of town at the Holiday Inn where the KITS and KPI seminars were being held, and so it wasn't a big deal. So I haven't checked it yet, but I'm warning people, check out the bookings now because it could be a real surprise if you're used to going late and just picking up a room, because even at the airport they say it's going to be very expensive.
It's a tough city. Mike and I did 3 classes there, and we just struggled to try and find dates around events and to get hotel rooms that were affordable. Because downtown, you're right, they go to $300 or $400 when there's a Titans game or whatever. That's what we're doing in the classes in Bowling Green. Nashville books, and so you're going to end up staying, like you said, maybe the airport's booked. You got to stay at Franklin probably or somewhere out of town. But that's too bad if ISS has got their show next to something that's big, because that city books up, and man, those guys gouge on their hotel rooms. So we'll see what happens there. So
I don't see why we can't stay over at your house, Scott.
Yes, Bowling Green is 60 miles, and we'll just have a little. We'll put a trailer out front, cots in the backyard, and we're all set. All right, everybody's invited to my house. Big party.
Well, I got dibs. I got dibs on the room at the top of the stairs. That's my room.
Your room's up there. You and I have talked numerous times. We've actually had a topic on our little list of things we're going to talk about on support logs about a customer of mine that emailed me a while back saying his guys could not hold any kind of halftone dots. They weren't good screen makers, and it was, they were having a real struggle with that. That's a common theme. We've been moving this topic kind of on and on for other topics, kind of got in the way. But it's funny because last week, another customer I sent steps to, he sent me a picture of the job, and it's a picture of an artist's picture of a very, very faint light blue artsy lady, a little bit of yellow in the blue. Send me the picture. She's all yellow. He says, there's no blue. Mm-hmm. I pull the file up. There's blue. I read it with the info panel in Photoshop, 20% blue. The yellow was like 10%. I emailed this guy back. I said, your guys aren't holding the halftone dots. They're just not doing a very good job. Oh, yeah, they are. I said, no, because my separations are correct here. Look at them, and what you're getting at the press is not the same. You've got to talk to your screen makers. So with that, I put online a file that anybody could make. This is a file that Michael Fresener has for download. I put it on my website, my TSEP's website, for download. It's a file that has 65, 55, 45, 35 LPI, all the way from 5% through 90%. And if you just burn it, Michael actually came up with the name. He's calling it the Halftone Truth Test Film. We're going to do a little commercial. You can't handle the truth. But this is all people need to do is do tests. I mean, you go over it when you do screen making. I struggle with it every day practically now, where I send somebody films and they can't hold the halftone dots, and all they have to do is use a dual cure emulsion, get the coatings correct, get the right exposure time. To me, it's mechanical. You kind of get that figured out based on your brand of emulsion. Make one of these guys in Photoshop, burn a screen, and see what you can what you can hold. And we'll find that most guys probably couldn't hold a 5% 65 line halftone because it's just too small, but they need to. And so anyway, so that's my probably part of a rant also, is that this is a common thing. And you and I discussed that everybody has samples like this. Saudi has sample films. You've got sample films. Ulano probably has sample files or films that you can get as test films.
Well, people that belong to the SGIA, they can dig deep into their archives and look up the original articles from Michel Kaza. It was originally called C10, but it's fine line halftones. It was done in the 80s, and it just expanded my mind as far as how to linearize a halftone pattern. And the key things that I remember was what I took away with it is that the stencil material does not know if it's a halftone or something big and bold, but there's always an edge. And so the edge of a little tiny halftone dot, of which I like people to begin to learn exactly how small a 10% 60 line dot actually is. And it's this little tiny number of thousandths of an inch, which I don't have at the top of my head, but you just literally do the math and you'll be amazed at how fine they are. A fine line test gauge, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think these are all important things to deal with. You can go today and go to screenweb.com and go look up Mark Coudre's article that was in the SGIA and in the in Screen Printing Magazine about linearization. But the whole idea of linearization is that you, in your computer, you said you wanted a 20% dot, but then it goes through all kinds of zigs and zags as it becomes, it goes through the rip, then it goes onto a piece of film, then you have to put it onto the screen. Then was your vacuum good enough? And then we're using multiple fluorescent lamps, so there's all sorts of undercutting, and so the edges are a little softer, or they aren't good, hard, sharp edges. Nobody can get away from undercutting and light scatter. So the big key to doing halftones is to calibrate and know what you need to do in the artwork so that your dots on the shirt are actually the right size. At the least, you have to understand that you also have dot gain because the ink spreads a little when it hits the shirt, but you've also got the choking.
Dot loss. You have dot gain and dot loss. You deal with it all the time. Yeah.
So there's where the zig and zag goes. So you have to actually tune the system. Once it's tuned, you should have standardization and without being able to measure. Now, if you download Scott's Positive, and you have a standard to match,
but it's a file, and then they've got to print it on their inkjet printer, and without a rip, who knows if it's linearized? We spent so many hours, hundreds, with CAD-Link when developing our rip years ago to try and get, like you say, if you say it's a 20% dot on the art, is it 20% on the film based on the opacity of the ink, how much absorbency there is in the film? At Ulano, your film may have been different than chromolines, and so that's my dilemma with them downloading my file as opposed to maybe sending them a file. If they download the file, they got to print it, but that's in their shop. So we're trying to let them see in their shop, what's going to happen there.
Well, Michael, are you selling a real envelope with the test positive in it, so they've got something that's made?
We might do that. Yeah, just as a $10, right. Not a profit center. Just
do you remember Spider's screen teller?
I did it for him. I mean, we did the original. We helped him build it. We did the films. I mean, Mike and I were joking. We should call this the halftone teller as a reference, homage to our buddy Spider.
I'm not prepared. My file is.
You have one?
I've got them out there, and so I will.
Next program, we'll have to talk about some legacy stuff, the color teller.
No, my portfolio. It's not where I can't get to it right now, but
right.
Maybe when we take the next break, maybe I'll hold it up while I'm doing something else. You'll know that I snuck out of the hallway and got the color teller, but that was made with real cameras.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, real zip and tone for the halftones. I mean, Spider's sitting there cutting out the, that was early days. But anyway, that was a cool deal. So as our support logs it's a common. I mean, gosh, because I do SEPs every day, and a lot of my users don't do. They do athletic work. So you take a guy that does athletic printing and lots of strokes, and he's used to his 125s and 156s. You give that guy then that occasional once a year. I got some accounts that come to me once a year for that special festival in their town, and I do the SEPs. They never print this stuff anymore for another year. And so for them, a halftone dot is a new experience, a high mesh is a new experience, and it's all mystery to them. Once I can teach them, know how to get and hold those dots, all of a sudden they start taking more of those jobs in, because all of a sudden they can do it. But anyway, so it's a constant struggle. You know, you and I have often talked that if you can't measure it, it's only an opinion. And you showed me something the other day that you went out and bought that I was blown away by.
I'm going to be reviewing this next week. We haven't got time to do it now, but when I was at the SGIA in Las Vegas judging, Mike Ruff, who used to work at NASDAR, now he's got his own consulting firm. He pulled this out of his pocket, turned it on, and he's measuring stuff, and I'm going, I
know. I got to have
what's that?
What'd it cost you?
$250 on Amazon. I'll be showing you this next week, and I'll be comparing it to a 30-power plastic microscope that I used to get at Radio Shack,
of course, yeah.
Which you can buy on Amazon. I used to have another place that I used to send people, and now the best price is $6.99 at Amazon. It's a Prime thing too, so I'm going to buy a bunch of them.
And no freight. And you'll have it tomorrow, by the way. So.
Right. Well, that costs an extra $4.
I know.
$4.
Well, Radio Shack's going bankrupt today. I think today's the day that they're having a big deal and people are making an offer for all the assets, and so we'll see what happens with Radio Shack. So anyway, but you know, we had talked earlier about the color teller, and as we did a hard segue here, somewhere the color teller magically one-shot supplies. That's when Spider was involved with those guys over in Hawaii. For those of you that don't know, this is from our good friend Spider, who passed in 2009, having his kidney replacement. Didn't quite make it off the operating table. Good friend of mine for many, many years. The color teller. We did the original one. Spider, we actually made the films, and well, yeah, it says actually Southwest Screen. That's funny. You have an old one. That was our original name. Holy crap! I need a copy of that. I don't have one of those. No. But that was really that told
something could be arranged, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely so.
I need one of those modern ones that you've got.
That was done with Zipatone dots. I mean, those are films, real films. So we actually had the films made. Yeah. Screen burning guide. Who was that from? Oh, that was from Spider's school. That's pretty funny, because that was kind of caused a little falling out with us and Spider, because one day he comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to open a school. Well, gee, Spider, we have a school also. And so anyway, it was downhill.
Kevin Davies and Spider
both gone.
Were put together a deal with Albert Cano of One Shot, and it never came about.
Fell apart.
Yep, fell
apart, yeah. Anyway.
So I'm teasing for next week. I'll be showing you how to use the V-Tiny digital camera and just a regular plastic microscope. $7. You cannot afford not to have one of those two things.
You know, I really haven't got a rant today, and maybe you have a rant. I don't know. We haven't talked about our rants or things that irritated us. Well, I know what irritated you today, but other than that.
Let's just forget about that.
Let's
Okay.
not go there. But business is booming. In fact, it's funny, as we do this show, sometimes we'll break, and I'll maybe check email real quick. This is true. I checked email just now while you were looking for the color teller. I got three separation orders bounced in. You know, it's like you can just feel it. I thought, you know, January for us, December, January is usually pretty slow. February starts picking up, but with the deep freeze, we were like thinking we had, you know, the world had walked off the edge and gone away. But now I can tell by my SEPs orders, things are booming, and the phone calls, and I can feel it. You said Rich Hoffman had commented last week, which we commented on the last show, that business was booming, and I think it's going to be a great year, frankly.
I'm looking forward to it.
Should be good. All right. Hey, in the new product news, how many times have I mentioned that I'm going to be shipping my T-Rip 2.0 pretty soon?
Oh,
before
T-Rip?
Before I traveled to Bowling Green this week, I got T-Rip 2 wrapped up online, downloading, and business is booming. All of a sudden, people were holding back, waiting for my newest version. For my users that already have TRIP 1, if it's working great, you don't need to upgrade. But if you have, if you're brand new to RIP, so RIP is a raster image processor that helps you do great films, and TRIP 2 is now shipping. It's a little more money. There's still confusion, though, on this CC 2014. I had 2 emails this morning from customers who have my older TSIP saying, hey, I see it won't work in CC 2014. And they get irritated when I tell them, yeah, there's a small upgrade because Adobe changed how plugins work. And I find that I think I mentioned it before in a rant, that Adobe doesn't charge for upgrades now, so I can see customers don't expect to pay for an upgrade for software that has to work with Adobe because they didn't pay Adobe. Before it was easy. They paid Adobe. That's an easy thing. They can get that. Okay, then they got to pay Scott maybe a little bit, But I can see now, I find in my emails I'm fighting that fight of they'll come back with, well, why do I have to pay you for an upgrade? Well, I have 100 hours in programming to get it to work, but I didn't pay for the upgrade with Photoshop. So it's going to be interesting, this whole digital thing without the hard.
So they're still not understanding that they pay for the upgrade every single month.
Yes, they don't quite. It hasn't quite sunk in.
It's a subscription now.
Yeah, and I get that. You had commented earlier. I get that occasional email. What version of Photoshop they need? Will it work with Essentials? And it won't work with Essentials. You have a customer that wanted to know about that, though, right?
Right, but they wanted to know why it won't work.
It doesn't do channels. So we do channel separations. It's funny. When the VIC-20 came out, what year do you think that was? I'm thinking.
I was living in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, so that would be 1982.
Oh, that long ago. Wow. When it came out, Michael, my son, of course, I don't know how old he was then, little kid, he had his VIC-20. And I remember him showing me on the monitor of the TV, look at the color. We could use this. And my response was, it looks great, Mike, but we can't separate it. So that's always been the problem with all the paint programs. You can build stuff and do it and all that. And I told you last week, my granddaughter does stuff in paint, can't separate it. That's the same thing with Essentials. You can build it and create it, and lots of the Photoshop tools are there, and it's the consumer version, but you can't separate it. So that's the problem.
And it also won't put it out into different individual files for colors, that sort of thing.
No. So that's the problem. So people ask that all the time. I said, now you got to get Photoshop. I will say on that same topic, though, and I know we need to keep the show short if we can, but on the same topic in this class this time, I had 2 students in my class who were adamant that they hated subscriptions. They were not going to go onto it. They were going to keep their CS4 and their CS3. They were not going to go. They were so paranoid of the subscription service, and it's just odd. I mean, maybe I told them I love it. I like it. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but these guys were adamant. We're not going to go that route.
Well, let me ask you one other thing while we're on that subject. How much are you using Corel anymore? Because I know you were an early Corel lover, and I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Corel guy, especially when I'm building my own designs. Granted, it's a vector program, so it's really Illustrator versus Corel. And I remember that you mentioned the great Bob Alabaster just a few moments ago. Didn't Bob do your Illustrator classes?
He was an AI.
Past?
Yeah, he was an AI guy. It's funny, like in the class this week at the boot camp, we have the beginner side. Those guys, half of them have Corel. They don't have Illustrator. But on the master separator side, where I've got guys with Macs and got artists there, most of them are AI guys. So it's still that owner-operator loves Corel. Artists and people that have been to school, or maybe they're working for a larger shop, they got Adobe Illustrator. And so, but my use of Corel is minimal because I just don't build stuff anymore, other than maybe I'll do an occasional graphic for the website or something. But still, I do that in Photoshop. I don't need sneaking Corel or AI. But
I remember on the T-shirt forums, it was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, there was a big battle between which or Photoshop or Corel Draw, and there was definitely a Capulets versus the I've forgotten the Hatfields and McCoys. That's an easier way to describe the problem. They knew what they liked. They knew what was better, and Ford versus Chevy versus Dodge.
It's like the Mac PC debate, We used to show dogs, as you probably know. We had our dogs, and we used to show dogs. So in the dog show world, you've got the people that show in the breed ring. They've got the big $200,000 RV, and their little Fluffy has a handler on it. And we showed in what's called obedience. Obedience is where go fetch the thing, go over the jumps. The obedience people were the trailer trash of the dog show world. I think that to the Mac guys or the artist guys, the Corel users are the trader trash of the industry. So anyway.
Well, it was Mertens lives in Phoenix.
Steve. Correct.
Yeah. Craig. Yeah. I'm sorry for not having his paw. In his classes that he used to teach at Printware, he was very clear about how you could go and do laser work. You could do engraving. You could do the cut vinyl work that I used to do with stalls on the cut and print machines. And so I always was a Corel lover from the early days.
Yeah, and he was right, so it's a tough issue. We'll have to do a poll one day.
I have a copy of Corel 1.1 over there on the shelf. I'm not going to get that now.
Listen, did you see, then we got to move on to the next topic. Did you see that online, I have to read some of the reviews, they had some of the artists go back with Adobe's 25th anniversary and use Photoshop 1 to see how they did in Photoshop 1 so they could see what all has been added to Photoshop. And I would love to go back and get a copy of Photoshop 1 because I have no memory of what was missing. Although I don't think channels were there in Photoshop 1, but I could be wrong. So.
If you want a real laugh, you go back to Windows 3.1 or you go back to Windows XP. Once you've been in 8 or 7 for a long time, you go back and how did we ever live with this?
Oh, I know.
And Windows 10 is coming. I've got a machine dedicated right over there. I'll be putting it on in the next couple of weeks. The ISO has just been released for tech preview, and so I'll be playing with Windows 10.
And I'll have to come out with TCEPS 4, and people will complain that why they have to pay for the upgrade when I'll tell them that I had to go through hoops to get it to work with Windows 10. So. So what does Oprah call her when she had her show? What did she call her book review? Just Oprah?
Book club.
Oh, book club.
Book
Okay.
club. You're supposed to go out and buy the book, which of course sold quite a few books. I'm sure that made her happy.
You think? And so this is the Greaves book club. You always have some great tidbit, though. I'll tell you what. I enjoy this.
It's history time, folks. Back in 1995, when I was the technical editor of Printware magazine, in September we put out The Printer's Guidebook, and it was 80 pages of the magazine that I edited. I wrote almost all of it, and it's juicy. It was a terrific step-by-step group of variables based on the Mr. Hoff's 57 varieties, or was it 54 variables that he published in Printware magazine. And I'm showing my bad memory today. I should know this better. I should have rehearsed this better. So you can't get it. It used to be on the screen on the Printware magazine website, but through various changes, or they didn't want to publish it anymore, it's not on their website, but I know where it does. I've always had it on my website, richardgreaves.com. Go there, and on the left side, you'll see that the Printer's Guidebook is right there. I took some other navigation things off, so I'll have to get in there and do a better job of cleaning it up. And when you snoop around my website, you'll see that I haven't really done anything since 2005.
Just don't go to the calendar of events, right?
So I'm ready for the beating I'll take there, but the Printer's Guidebook is up there. And so don't scrape the pages. Don't waste your time doing that. I will put in the show notes the links to the 1995 and to the 1997 Screen Maker's Handbook that was published 2 years later. They're free, so they're worth their weight in gold. Definitely. And excellent references, something that you can have, in your shop to print them out. Alas, if you've got a color printer, it will be nicer because there's a lot of color photographs in there. And if you call me up and you need some advice and you've got that book already, it just speeds things up. So I encourage you to download, violate the Printware copyright, violate my copyright, and spread the word.
Good topic. Good stuff, too. Hey, that's our show for today. Scott Fresener from Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm flying out. I got to get to the airport now in about an hour, and they're going to rain all day. Richard Greaves still in Detroit. although going to be in Indiana here later on in May and moving around. And we enjoyed having you guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you, Richard. Good talking to you again.
Thanks for watching. See you next week.